have some examples of work for this project that's received different levels of marks. And the purpose is, if you have a look at these, you can see the diversity of student work, and then also understand why one might get graded better than the other. So here we have one that was around the level one mark. So firstly, it's a little short, just a first glance. So it's hard to get enough detail if you're this short. And then also you see the formatting is a little casual here, just inconsistent, and so off the top of my head, that gives a negative impression. Although there's more to it than just length, but just off the top of my head. So we have a bit of a description. I would think a more description would be good, because then it helps determine if the product is suitable for the proposed market. And again, there's more time spent on the history than on what the product is, because if we're going to do a 5P analysis of the target market, we need to know a little bit more about the product, and don't assume that everyone understands what every brand is. And also we want to see you go through the thinking process. So we go through the market profile. So remember, we talked about the PESTLE: political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And we have a couple of stats, but we don't really touch any of those PESTLE elements, and there could be more socioeconomic statistics. I think one that could be relevant. So it's good to know that there is high sales. That's good additional research. I might want to know a little bit about the disposable income, the income level, spending money, I think things like that. So that would have raised the mark. And then we're looking at the trade barriers. I think we're talking about going to South Korea, so there's a logistics issue. It definitely has to be addressed. How are we going to manufacture the makeup in South Korea? And there would be a great opportunity to use like branch plant, joint venture, throw in some more terminology to show how the logistic issue would be overcome. Are there other makeup companies that make it in South Korea? Perhaps look into how they get their product there. And then, yes, so culture, I think that's another good point. We want to make sure that, standards of beauty might be different around the world. So you would want to make sure that the makeup products would also be popular with the target market. So I think a little bit more, does Bite Beauty have to make any special products, any modifications to fit in with the culture? And endorsements, interactive stores, these are easy, kind of obvious items, and they're very, very short. I like more of a specific plan. Like what cities? You're going to launch in city, you're going to launch in rural area. Do you have an idea where you might have a store? You're going to launch one store, you're going to launch distribution, it's going to be, Bite Beauty is going to be available in every department store and every mall, or is it just going to be a direct flagship type store situation? You're going to use a multi-domestic strategy, that is the marketing strategy in Korea will be different from the one in Canada. Or you're going to use a global strategy using the same strategy in both countries. I definitely would like to know more specifics. So I would say the lack of terminology and the lack of specifics held back this particular one here. So then we have another one, and it's more detailed. And you can see that there's, this, as a result of it being a little more detailed, you get the idea more now. Fortunately, they spend some more time on the product, but again, we're not really getting the sense of what Roots sells. I know what Roots sells because of its big prominent place in the Canadian market, but are we focusing on the shoes? Are we talking about the home furnishings? What kind of home furnishings is it? What kind of shoes? What kind of leather goods is it? What kind of athletic wear? Can you paint a bit of a more detailed picture? And then that'll be a way to judge if the market is appropriate. And again, it's like, I find a bit of a what I want to say, frequent error is spending more time on the company profile. Like it's good to have a bit of a history. Okay, so strong Canadian brand, almost 50 years in business. That's great to know. But I'm actually more concerned about what is for sale. What are the prices like? What type of promotion does it use? Where is it for sale? And sometimes students, they fill up on company profile and they don't talk about much of the detail. Okay, so we're talking, this coincidentally happens to be about South Korea again, and we have a few more statistics. So we're talking about North American fashion being a trend, so that is good. Making the case that this is going to be an important step for Roots' growth. I think we could have again gone into a little more of the demographics of the, we mentioned 18 to 24, but what else? Lifestyle, income level, any particular gender, things like that. And again, the PESTEL analysis is lacking. So we talk a bit about the trade barrier and logistics again is a key thing. So there is a bit more details about how the logistics will work, but there could also be a bit more of a use of terminology. Roots in other Asian countries participates in a joint venture, that is, in partners with someone who does the arrangements, the logistics, who finds the locations for them and sets it up and manages it, and they just provide the product. So referring to that would have been good. And the strategy, it's getting a little bit more detailed, so the promotion is becoming a bit more specific. But I feel like there's just Roots should hire some new designers to design some unique products. Well, that's a little self-evident. Could you suggest what products you think would go? Could we just up the analysis a little bit? And so we had a really good promotion plan, but I could see how the promotion is going to work. But then the other two steps are glossed over. So here we have a Canada Goose, and again, a little more about the company history than the product itself. Although the one thing I would say is this is a little bit more relevant. He does talk about the Canadian Goose maintaining that Canadian Canada identity, so that is part of the branding. So that is a salient piece of information, and it addresses where it already has operated. So that would be a good indicator of future success. And so we're talking about now, sometimes different products are stronger in different areas. So I think that there could have been some more of a scientific discussion about why this is a suitable market, and this held it back. Just talks about the wage, the ability to afford the good, the climate, things like that. I would have, that's a good start. They could have been a bit more detailed. That's why I provided those socioeconomic indicator suggestions, or why I provided the PESTEL analysis, so it can give you something concrete you can dive into. So it talks about the trade barriers. Now, in some cases, it's just not going to be as severe because there is a free trade agreement, so that will help. But we do need to figure out not only how is it going to get to Norway, but also the student makes a good point about the low population densities. So exactly how is it going to get to different parts of the country? It's not like there's a big city like the Greater Toronto area. So I think they raised the issue, which was good to know, but they didn't totally explain how they would handle it, hence why it's a level 3 and not a level 4. And then so we have a bit more of some strategy. It could have included some more terminology, like again, what multi-dimension, domestic strategy, global strategy. Again, how is the venture going to be structured? Again, do they propose any specific changes in the product? So the sort of the advertising's a good idea. Working with festivals is a good idea. And I think just so those are two marketing ideas. Maybe another business type of idea would be good. Talking about maybe the distribution, the logistics of the whole situation. So good source. Now here's it's good to go to these these Wikipedia pages to get an overview, but I really would think you can do a better job by going to, say, the World Bank or the OECD website, so that you have a little bit more, because we have like a few Wikipedia sites here. I'm a little skeptical about that, so make sure you can read it to get an overview of the situation. But there's a lot of data websites out there like StatCan or the equivalent in another country, the OECD, the World Bank, things like that, and they will definitely give you very, very current and expert stats. So that was one thing I thought this was lacking. It could have had a few more stats. Okay, lastly, we have a level 4 project. It's not perfect. Doesn't mean that they didn't make any errors. It's again, you can see it's got a little bit of the extra space. I would have preferred that things just be a little bit more formatted a little bit better, but that's a minor issue. And I would say I wasn't totally convinced that this would work. But I thought that there was enough academic detail that I believed the student had looked into all these situations. So, if I were Beaver Tales, I may not have given them this money, but I thought that they went through enough of the process and it was close that at least the idea had promise and it was something worth looking into. So, again, we was talking about the product. And then had lots of really good detail about the market profile, standard of living, coffee and cake culture, chocolate, the environment. So it looks at all those PESTLE items. So I thought it was a little more thorough. Maybe this introduction could have been a bit more detailed. But great second section with a lot of specific facts that cover multiple aspects of the situation, talking about the trade barriers. So they went to figure out that to open up a restaurant in Switzerland, there's a special permit that's needed. So they mentioned that, about how that would be needed. They referred to the Canadian-European Free Trade Agreement, and explained that, talking about regulations on food. So food would be a little different than clothing, because there's a lot of health concerns, and then there's also very, very they're very, very proud of their local markets. So there are food regulations. So then a little bit of a comparison of the minimum wage versus Canada to get an idea of what it would cost. And then when we got to the strategy, it goes into detail of all these different items. So if you notice, the first few was mostly marketing. Well, here we're like location. Hey, this is where the first store will be located. And he's just showing how it fits in with what Beaver Tales usually does. Talking about what the branding will be, trying to, renaming products that might be unfamiliar. Talking about the pricing, and they refers to actually what's called the Big Mac Index, which is a way that, since the Big Mac's available around the world, it can be a good indicator for the purchasing power of a currency. So it talks about how the Swiss franc has a bit of a higher purchasing power. And then again, who's going to manage it? We're talking to someone who's a local expert. So again, I liked how this person really, to me, what is your strategy going to be, and why did you pick that country? To me, those are the biggest components of the project, and it really seemed that this person took the time to look at those aspects and thorough details from all sides. So that was why it became a level 4.